taking it in and it's working. Really, it's really helpful to hear that, because I feel like I just get from hearing you that it was a part of you I didn't trust, and I want to apologize for that.
It's a part of growing, Phyllis.
Yeah.
You just took a step with us. Thank you for sharing that.
We had to crawl first.
But it is a part of my culture. It's sort of very special.
You know, I asked so many masters what was the meaning of the hon, you know, and no one could really tell me what the real meaning was. Or I somehow got sidetracked and another question came up that overrid it. And that's why I asked you the exact meaning. And I think I read somewhere in the literature from the Reiki Alliance that the meaning was there, was it?
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said?
Yeah.
It's in the kit.
Another one of those words. Anything else?
I think also when the master has their hon, and no master really likes lending their hon to someone else. In fact, you feel like, even though they're the same, that you just can't ask because it's theirs, you know? And that's their little special piece. Like we all have our own little seals on there with our names on it, and that's separate.
Yeah, you know the business that we were doing the other day. One of the things that happens, like to any master, whether they're carpenters or artists or even race car drivers, they have whatever they work with, they imbue with their energy. You know, so their key goes into it. So of course it is very different.
Very powerful force.
I mean, I could have asked Claudia, I've got these certificates that you've given me, but I haven't got a hon to stick on there, you know, and I went under incredible pressure at first. Where's our certificates? And I said, well, look, I don't have the hon to put on there, and I feel like I'm not giving you something complete. Can you just be patient with me, because I'd really like to put that there for you. And because now I've got that and I can put that on there, I've got this big celebration coming up with all the students who were patient to receive that in a couple of areas, to go now and have a party and celebrate the completeness of the certificate of the hon.
Yeah, there's just one thing I'd like to say. I think since I've done Reiki, I feel a Japanese connection. And yeah, that's I don't know how else to put it. It's not on a personality level, and it's got nothing to do probably with the here and now, but somewhere deep inside me, the way this energy is linking and my connection with that energy, I feel a Japanese connection.
Yeah, I feel like I know I have been a Japanese in the past life. I've had that shut down very long ago. I firmly believe that we've all come together for a reason. That reason is what we're saying. Firmly believe it.
One of the rules of groups is you don't whisper.
I chopped it off and it's just my weed sticks.
Oh, I see.
It's sort of
Sneaky.
wasn't appropriate. Nothing very
Yeah.
active.
Oh no, I hate it when people do that.
But if it's really
It's all right.
inappropriate, I don't think
I'll
we
let
want
it
to hear
go.
it.
Don't encourage me, it's not us that you know.
Phyllis, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Now that you've answered that one, had a little discussion. In the blue book again, there's this writing which is on your left desk there.
What?
The Reiki
Oh.
symbol, which is in
Yeah.
the blue book.
Uh-huh.
People say that that's Takata's handwriting. Is that correct?
No,
Who actually did this calligraphy? Was that Paul or?
no, I don't know. I don't actually know. It might be Michael, and it might be a calligrapher that was in Eugene who did the certificates. I'm not sure.
Did your grandmother leave anything in that respect that ever was reproduced in her handwriting? With writing the word Reiki or her interpretation?
I don't know. Probably in some of her letters, but she didn't really write in Japanese very much. She wrote in English.
That just clears up a few myths, you
Yeah,
see.
yeah, right. Clear up myths. I mean, this is a perfect time for clearing
Yeah.
myths. Misconceptions.
That's the use of the blue book, isn't it? It's there in black and white, people to see.
Yeah, but sometimes it creates more myths.
Probably.
Yeah, like the book, you know, I'm finding in Victoria a lot of people are claiming to be Reiki channels because they've read the book.
Which book?
And everybody else
I'm
finding
gonna
that,
read
they
it.
must all be getting feedback. In South Australia, yeah, they really say, oh yes, well I do Reiki, and they've got Reiki because I've read the book. And the book shows you all the positions, and that's all they know. There are several books out which you can get freely at Theosophical and places like that that have got it all in, and they maintain their channels because which in some sense, I guess.
Could you just bringing that point up, because the people, one of the things that people used to say to me is, oh, I do that, and I'm very clear that Reiki is something very specific. But I really, well, for me it is. I think there's a real, it's my opinion, preempt that there's a real difference between what I was doing before and what I did after the initiation, and there's a very special energy that comes through in the initiation that people who haven't had the initiation don't have. I mean, they have something else, and I'm not putting that down. I'd just like to hear your view on that, how you talk about it.
Um, well, I told this little story, I think maybe it was yesterday, even, or day before yesterday, to the other group, and I will tell it again, because I feel like it most communicates what I'd like to about Reiki. And that is, for me, Reiki is like the ocean. I mean, if you can use the analogy of the ocean, it just is. It's a force of nature that is all around us. It's universal life energy. It's what moves us. And I feel like at one time, all of man lived right next to the ocean, and we had this connection with the ocean, and we bathed in it, and we learned to work with it, and we could do anything we wanted to with the ocean, and we could heal ourselves through it. And for me, this was way before herbs or stones or anything like that. And then I feel like we started to move away from the ocean, and in various degrees, people started to really move away until they forgot even that the ocean existed. And throughout the ages, people have journeyed from the ocean and brought this message that there's an ocean out there somewhere to people, and somehow they've gotten a connection back to this ocean. It's my inside of himself that there was an ocean of energy, that there was something more to what was happening. You know, he had the same feelings as most of you who have said, I knew that there was something more, you know, to this energy of laying on of hands, but I didn't know what, and so I searched for it, and I found Reiki. But your search didn't take 21 years or however long it took Usui. It just took a few months, some of you a few hours. And what I feel like he did was really cleansed himself and bathed in the ocean and became part of the ocean. And in that space, he was an inspired person. And he went to the mountaintop to acknowledge his inspiration and also to receive anything that was open for him to receive. He was just open. And I don't know what really happened on the top of the mountain. I only know that an initiation happened of some sort. And that he came down knowing that he knew. And from that point, you know, throughout the lineage, that's been packaged in some way so that we can also share in that inspiration. So I feel like, you know, he's an emissary from this big ocean, and no matter where we are, how much we've forgotten, there's this connection that happens. And the really magical part about this particular connection is that it's solid. You know, there's no going back, there's no turning it off, there's no, it doesn't seem to be any boundaries about belief systems or, you know, age or any of those kinds of things. And I really feel like some of us remember the ocean, you know, it's like that's how people go, oh yeah, I laid on hands a lot, or, oh, I found myself doing this and didn't know what it was, that kind of thing, you know. We have these archaic, ancient memories that we come, and, you know, we're just got the connection now. And in some way, a lot of the arguments that are happening these days about the expression of what I call the expression of Reiki is really simply arguing about something that's not very meaningful. You know, the connection is to the ocean, and eventually when we get finished with what colored clothes we wear and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, then we'll start making our own pilgrimages into the ocean, and it's the depth. It's like the ocean is depth. You know, there's so much more that if we just drop down rather than swimming on the surface, that there's so much more inside of that. So this last weekend I told people, you know, you don't have to be a Reiki master to get the depth. It's one way, but you don't have to be a Reiki master to do that. So for them just to challenge themselves to see what their path is in mastering. In this whole scenario, for me, Reiki masters are simply people who have a commitment to going back and forth and connecting to this ocean and going deeper. And on that path of going deeper lies, and part of the way that we get deeper into this ocean is by doing initiations, because it's a very special way of connection. It is, in fact, at some point service for other people. But for me, the real value of doing initiations, the real value of opening yourself to doing classes and so on, is simply to go deeper inside yourself and to awaken these ancient memories of who we are as human beings and the mysteries that we hold inside of our bodies that are available but not known right now. And so I don't feel like, and my experience is actually, that the people who have done like Christian healing, laying out of hands healings on me and so on, it all feels like Reiki. I feel like that the specialness is that it's strong, it's clear, and it's connected. And somehow it happens in these four, little window of time. And the real blessing for me is that when I go into doing the initiations, that the people who are sitting there trust me so much. They're able to close their eyes and just sit, not really knowing. I mean, you can describe minutely, physically what you're going to do, but they know that there's something much more happening. And yet they sit there with their eyes closed, just like little kids, kind of like, what's next? And it's our job, as far as I'm concerned, to be trustworthy of that kind of trust. And part of that trustworthiness for me is going deeper and plummeting into who we are, into this depth of this ocean. And we all have our own personality and viewpoint kind of stuff to work out, and that's really fine. You can't go deeper if there's lots of surface turbulence. That's not possible. So that for me is sort of an overview of how I see this whole world of Reiki. And that feels really good to me. And it feels right what's happening.
Well, it's good to hear that, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they've got, and I don't know where they're coming from. And when people ask me that question, I find it really hard to give an answer, and they can say I don't know and then give my opinion. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, I've had a lot of hands-on healers do the workshop, and I used to do hands-on healing before, and my experience has been each one of them, without exception, has had such tremendous change through the initiations, even though they've done quite profound healings before. It doesn't mean they're not healers, but once they've been attuned, they were usually the ones who had quite profound experiences during the attunements, and also tell me later of how it has changed their healing to so much deeper and other aspects of themselves. And that's just been my experience without exception at this point.
Right. But I don't feel the energy is different.
I believe there's only one feeling.
But the attunements themselves are what are taking them deeper. Is that what you are saying? The attunements themselves are what are taking them to a deeper level of the same energy.
It's not that the energy's different, but I know that when I was doing healing before, it used to make me sick. And when I'm doing healing now, it still makes me sick, but it's a cleansing. And I really definitely know the difference. It's like I'm really working through my own stuff.
Right.
But before it really felt like I was taking it on. And I know that that's the initiation.
It's like a refinement of the energy, isn't it? I sometimes say to people, it's like if you imagine the texture of cotton, and then the fine-tuning or initiation, whatever you call it, it's like becomes like silk. The way it flows through.
To me, it's just more unique nature of energy. It's the same energy that how you're connected to it.
Well, and that you're connected to it. There is this wonderful series of books by a man, you can write this down, by a man named Orson Scott Card, C-A-R-D. Orson Scott Card. Orson, Scott Hart. And it's a series of books, and the first one is The Seventh Son.
Oh, I've heard of it, yeah.
You know these books, yeah?
I've heard of them. Marta mentioned them. I've never read them, though.
And the next book is...
Usui, what is doing?
Huh?
Oh, Son.
Son.
S-O-U.
Yeah, so it's Seventh Son. And then the second one is, I can't remember, and the last one is Alvin the Maker. But it's a trilogy. A trilogy, I was going to say. It's a trilogy.
That too.
Yes. And it is really a wonderful, it's in the science fiction part of your library. And it's a really wonderful series of books. They're very easy to read. And I feel like that you would relate to just the framework, the analogy of the story. The message that I got, which was really special for me, and there are two of them. One is that when we're born, we're born with a gift, or several, but with a gift. And that in the old days, in the ancient days, people were named for their gift. And it wasn't clear whether you were named for your gift or your gift was named for you, or something like that, you know? And people recognized it. Midwives were the people who really recognized this, because when the baby came out, they would feel this energy, and they could tell what the gift was most often of this child. And it's a really wonderful thing to think about, because I feel like what happens with Reiki, as I keep telling people that it makes you individuals, is that it brings out, it highlights this gift once more for us. And we get to see what our true gift is. You know, we get to see what our true gift is. And most often, we don't see it or recognize it. We haven't a clue what it is, but people around you can start to notice what the gift is, and pretty soon, you know, it's out. And those masters who have worked a long time in Reiki, I feel like in some way they get narrower, and in some ways they get bigger, because they really hone this gift, you know? So it's like, I feel like I'm beginning to find out what my gift is. And it's like I have to eliminate all those other things I used to do that somebody else can do, because they have this gift and I don't, and that's okay, because I can use that energy then to really develop my own gift, rather than trying to be the Renaissance woman and do everything, which is what we're taught to do in this society, you know.
Well, that means I can go and get a clean the next thing I've done that.
Exactly. Great. So the next thing for me that I learned is that this man, about the book, is really, he calls sort of like it's the devil kind of aspect, but he calls it the unmaker. And what he learns in the book, his name is Alvin Maker, because his father is a cobbler or something. Anyway, he makes things. So he's called Alvin the Maker, and the maker part is his gift. And what he does is, whenever the unmaker, he feels the unmaker as a little boy, he starts weaving baskets in the grass or something like that, and he makes something. And what he learns throughout these books is that the making allows the unmaker to go away. You know, just the act of creation. And then he finds out later on in the whole stories that the only way to truly make something and create something is to be in it, is to be a part of it. That's the connection. And once you have that connection, whatever you make is good. There's no way to be connected to something and make it and have it be bad. And I feel like that's such a truism about Reiki. It's like self-healing. We take responsibility for our lives. We make it, when you are doing the initiation, you are a part of that creative process. And you can't make anything bad in that space. And it's this really beautiful, neat story about that. And I feel like all of us have gone through the stages that Alvin has in his life. And that's why I think it would be really neat if you were interested to read these books, because there's this one really great scene where he talks to the cockroaches in his room.
Oh no!
You guys will probably really relate to it.
Do it all the time.
But he does something really bad. He wants to get back at his sister, so he calls all the cockroaches to him and he says, "Are you hungry?" And they go, "Yeah, I'm hungry." He says, "There's food in the next room." And so he gets all these cockroaches to go to his sister's room. Well, of course they start killing the cockroaches. And the cockroaches come back and they say, "Hey, buddy, you lied to us. There's death in the next room, you know." And it's this really neat story of all these really wonderful little things. So, I don't know. I really love the cockroach story. Because I feel like I've done that too, you know. Like, hey, there's food in the next room. Just to get rid of someone, you know. But, it backfires every time. So, anyway. So I feel like that's really true about Reiki, is that, you know, once we're a part of it, we make it, we create it. We create good. That's all that we
Before
have.
we finish about the books, I was amused. One student rang me a few days after the workshop and she read the blue book and said, "My husband's not very happy that now we've got to become vegetarian." And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "Oh, it must be, it's an excerpt from Sister Carter's early diary." And so every time now I hand out the books, I just sort of mention them, take in context. She doesn't say in there that you have to be a vegetarian at all, but it's interesting how people...
That's just Reiki people are all vegetarian.
Yeah, she thought that's what she had to do.
Right. Well, that's another part of Linda and my conversation about the flu books. And most masters that we've talked to actually and gotten feedback from would like to have that either taken out or have some context for it. I actually think there are more inspired things that my grandmother has written about Reiki rather than dogma. I mean, it just doesn't quite fit. And it wasn't her particular... it wasn't how she meant it.
Oh, I know that.
Space.
So happy that.
So no, I am not a vegetarian. In case you didn't see my hand raised. And neither was she, actually.
Neither was Buddha.
Anyway, just to get that mythology straight. Talking about mythology. Hardly any of the Reiki masters are vegetarian. It's really interesting because I feel like people have gone through that phase. Like when I first got into Reiki, everybody was a vegetarian. I mean, it was like I had to sneak out to get meat. And now in Reiki master conferences, I would say 2/3 of the people there eat meat. And the vegetarians really have a hard knock of it, eh?
We did real good. I didn't know why, but for the first about 5 or 6 days it was all vegetarian. And it was terrific food. And then they started putting meat there. Quality just went...
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, to get you away from that.
That means for that group. That means for that group.
No, we're talking about the World Conference.
Oh, right.
New York last year.
I didn't notice it. I thought it was good all the way through.
Could I ask one very small question about mythology?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Others
Can you tell me when abouts Dr. Kayashi took over from Dr. Usui? There's no sort of mention of a date or a time.
No, I don't have a clue. From going backwards in time rather than letting us figure it out, I imagine sometime in the very early 1900s.
Oh, so
Now, and in addition to this particular thing, one of the interesting things about Japan from about 1845 to the early 1900s, there was this, it seemed like there was this, or actually, about 1845 to about 1880, actually, there was this rash of incredibly inspired leaders in Japan, people who came up from kind of nobody to do something really neat. Like, there are all these sects of Buddhism that came up that were like people's sects, like things that had arisen from the people. My grandmother belonged to, or went to this church in Hawaii called Rishoko Seikai, that was a sect of Buddhism that was founded by a woman during this time. And she really believed that it was just, that simplicity was it. So, and that the church had to belong to the community. So she founded this order of Buddhism, and she stripped all the ritual out of the church. And they did chanting, but it was very clearly just very stripped down chanting. And all the halls were halls, they weren't churches. So that they could clear the chairs out and use it for schools or community events or whatever, that the altar was a part of that. So, and Aikido was also developed during this time, and Jōrei, and a lot. There's Tenrikyo, the Church of Tenri, was also founded during this time, which is a church dedicated to the Earth Goddess. And they do wonderful, wonderful chantings. And they had a few of the Japanese community where Michael lived in New Denver were part of the Tenri Church, and he would always go to their services. And he said at first he used to go because they always have a great Japanese banquet afterwards, which he loved. But then he really got into it, and they would chant for days sometimes, which is a very Buddhist kind of thing to do. So there was lots of inspired thinking during this time in Japan. And I had this vision one time of reading all these different things and kind of putting them together in this time span. And seeing that there was just this shaft of light that hit Japan during this period of the mid-1800s, and wondering if these people knew each other. I often wondered if they somehow met along the road or something and talked to each other and said, hey,
Probably met before they came.
what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I'll do a bit of this. And it'll all come together through about 2000.
So, it's a very, very interesting time in the history of Japan. And so that's another part of the myth.
You know what's actually happened with Reiki in Japan now? Because it's still very...
Well,
let me get to my question about too.
so Reiki, as an energy, let's see, how do I explain? Within the Japanese culture of Japan has always been an understanding of energy. And for me, it's demonstrated in the way that they live and the rituals that they have in just their daily living. And out of this ancient way of working with energy has come martial arts and all the arts that, and just the way of the Japanese culture, or the old culture, I should say. So, for instance, I met this old man who's now, I think, 73 or something, a few years ago in Hamburg, and his father, he said, was a Reiki master. And he said, my father always had this energy in his hands, and people recognized him, as one of these recognition of gifts, that he had always been a healer ever since he was a kid. So at some point in his life, he just knew that he was, he developed it and became a master. Now, he wasn't really initiated by anyone. He just was recognized as a master because that's part of the cultural milieu of Japan, yeah. And he said that when he was a kid, that he was really afraid of his father because his father was very psychic also. And really, he didn't like this part of his dad, and he didn't like this part of, being with his father. So at his father's death, his father wanted to pass this energy on to him, and he didn't want to accept it. So he ended up going into acupuncture and developed a whole other branch of acupuncture, his whole other way of doing it, but that was his way of channeling that energy. And then he came to this Reiki class like 3 years ago, like when he was 70 or something. And for him it was an incredible healing with his father. And and the rest of it I can't share. But for me to have him in the class just validated all of the things that I thought about Reiki in Japan. It's like, one, Japanese people don't talk about their spiritual development. So even if they know about Reiki or have heard about it, they very often won't tell you. Number two, it is in some way very different because the culture is imbued with this particular scene, and so it's not so much a big thing. And their value, or there used to be value on spiritual growth, was a very different kind of thing, and I don't know, it was a very different scene there up until a few years ago. Now, I feel like Reiki is being taught in Japan by lots of different people, mostly people from the United States. And it's a very interesting kind of returning in some ways. And what they're learning, and Masako, this Japanese woman who was here this weekend, said also pretty clearly, is that they're learning Reiki, not the Reiki that they knew in some way, but the Reiki that has been passed through the American culture and then gone back into Japan. And so I have a letter actually in this folder from a woman in Japan who's actually a little confused, but she really wants to find people who will form a healing circle and do all that. But it's a kind of a revolution in Japan. It's like you wouldn't hear. I mean, the workshops would be pretty silent. You just go, you do the initiation, you teach the position. I guess they would practice, but they would never share anything that happened. And even when I went to Hawaii and I did Reiki with the older Japanese people, they would come talk to me because I'm the master, but they would never share in class. And I very much respected that part of who they were. And I had a second or third cousin, I can't remember what, come, and she sat in on the class, and she was about 60 at the time. And her daughter, who was my age, came and took the class. And I talked to her and I said, hey, listen, is your mother like this? She said, yes. And I said, great. I thought so. And then after the whole class was over and everybody had gone home, this Japanese woman said, oh, I have to talk to you. And she took me into this room and she talked to me about her 35 years of having Reiki. It was very beautiful, but it's like, she said, I've just wanted a master to talk to, and she said, I've not been able to share this with anybody, not even her daughter. So that's the kind, and she's lived in Hawaii all of her life. So you see that this is a culture that is very different than ours is. And they're changing now. But some of that is still, this next generation is going to be very different, but it's still a very private culture.
And that fits in. Apparently I was told that a Reiki master from England, I think it was in Japan on business. He was a businessman. and somehow during the business board meeting or whatever, he somehow mentioned to someone that he was a Reiki master. And after the meeting, one of the Japanese men got him aside in our rooms and honoured him and said, I too am a Reiki master. But apparently does not say that. He said openly, but said it to him separately. So that fits then the culture I can understand really.
Right. And in fact, because these people knew Westerners, they probably weren't insulted. But in another kind of social setting, that would be really an insult. People don't...
For the white person to have said that.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's like saying, I don't know, it's kind of like standing up and taking your clothes off. You know, it's like, it's just not done. Because it then makes them a party to an indiscretion, which in Japan is like not okay. I know this.
Phyllis, can I ask you something
Yeah.
about, your grandmother had two children, one of them was your mother, obviously.
Yeah.
It's intrigued me that none of them really have involved with Reiki. It's never really mentioned of them having done it or teaching or anything.
I don't know. Oh, sure. Well, my mother got initiated by Hayashi over in Japan, and I think that my aunt did too, I'm not sure. But she's been dead, my aunt's been dead for 15, 20, maybe 15 years ago or so. And my mom actually chose to have a family, and in that I feel like is a lot of other decisions, you know. I mean, it seems like a very simple decision, but for her it was a very clear one. And yet the tradition of the Japanese is that the physical, all the legacy goes to one person. You don't split it up. No, you know, you get this and you get that. Especially in spiritual lineages, like my grandmother, when Hayashi died, she got all of the property and everything from Hayashi, and that she gave permission to the Hayashi family to live in the clinic, you know, and do the whole thing. But they were really hers. They were materially hers. So all of my grandmother's possessions and her legacy went to my mother. So that's why I said, when she gave me the home, she actually gave me the legacy. I mean, that passed through her. And I really feel like, I feel okay about saying that now. It wasn't okay for me before, because I felt like people would disturb her and invade her privacy somehow. But now I don't feel like that, and I feel like that needs to be said in order to clear up this kind of odd shift that also happened, you know, on a material level.
In the video that was made some years ago, you mentioned that your grandmother taught in a non-verbal way. That statement interests me because I feel one has to be quite verbal in one's teaching, as well as obviously as a physical aspect. Can you comment on that?
Well, the only way that I can demonstrate or talk about this a little bit is, again, to use an analogy of the martial arts. And in the tradition of martial arts, you're shown a form and then you get thrown all the time. You just go and you get thrown and get thrown and get thrown. And pretty soon you get that there's a secret to this. Otherwise, you know, you just batter yourself. And there's no thing like somebody could really give you a hint and say, hey, if you did this, you know, it wouldn't hurt so much. Or, you know, if you met this person with the equal energy, it wouldn't.
Keep going.
Is it 6?
No,
Terry's
Terry's
one on
on
the
the
Yeah, the
phone.
same class is 12 past 6.
And Terry's on the phone.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought that's what she was saying, to let us know. We'll give her
so,
a
anyway, so I feel like that's the way my grandmother taught,
So it's about like learning by experience.
learning by
Yes,
experience.
I understand that.
And for me, what she always used to tell her masters, and what she used to tell her students was, she'd initiate her masters, she'd, teach them the initiations, and then she'd just say, let Reiki teach you. And that was it, And so, I bang, you just bang your head against the wall so many times and you use the door. So that's the kind of teaching that she did. And I feel like, in some way, we're still doing that, but we have a lot of verbal stuff to ease our consciousness. And I would really encourage all of us to, including myself, to really listen deeply and see how much of that we really need in our classes, the verbal part. Because I feel like there's a lot of caretaking, and yet there is care that needs to be given to it too. So there's just this balance, and we can talk about that when we talk about the classes of form and essence and that balance between the two. Bing!
I just wanted to say something that when Leslie brought up that question